Hello, this is Dr. Pola Rosen. I'm here at the Stevenson School in New York City with the head of school, Mr. Doug Herron, and the director of outreach, Dr. Matthew Mandelbaum. And it's a pleasure to be here with them today. And sharing your views and perspectives on the school and on special needs students that you've been so successful in teaching over the years. I'd like to launch with, as I said, the name of the school is the Robert Louis Stevenson School, and it actually started over 100 years ago as a girls' school. And I have to say, what an appropriate time to be here, because March is Women's History Month. The school has become now a very specialized school, and I wanted to ask the head of school, Mr. Douglas Herron, what differentiates you from other schools providing special services to different learners?
Hi, thank you. I think there are three primary ways that distinguish us. There are obviously some overlap. One is that we try to work with every student individually by a full understanding of both their academic and their social and emotional strengths and challenges, that we can program them into classes according to how they're functioning academically. The second is that we work in a program that has essentially fully integrated academic and psychological services. So the keystone of our program is our advising system. The advisor is the key adult for the student in the school. Advisors are also teachers, so they understand the educational and the emotional process from both sides, as an advisor counselor and as a teacher in the classroom. And that everybody, because we're very small, we also have daily full faculty meetings where students' yesterday's issues are discussed, so that everybody, and this I think is unique about us, everybody on the staff knows what's going on with every kid all the time, whether it is in your classroom or not. And I think the third point is we work very hard to have a good collaborative relationship with outside professionals who are involved with the student, the family, the student's therapist, family therapist, other child service agencies that they may be involved. We try to keep good communication and try to make sure that we're fitting in the right place in the student's needs, that we're providing the school, but we're part of a bigger picture of what's going on with the student at the time.
And what I would just add to that is we're helping bright adolescents who have social, emotional, and learning issues succeed, transform their lives, and go on to college. We have a 100% college acceptance rate. We also have rolling admissions, so students can come to us throughout the year. We have a July term as well. And most of our students are funded by their districts, so that allows us to have a lot of economic and racial diversity. So we are a private school for public good.
Dr. Mandelbaum, can I address this to you? One of the salient things about this school, it seems to me, is that you have 8 students in a class and that you have certain subjects like mindfulness. Can you elaborate on that a little bit?
Sure. Well, as Doug said, the school is about addressing the whole adolescent, and what that means is we need to think about them from an academic standpoint, from a social emotional perspective, as well as how they're developing physically, and see that coming together in an integrative fashion. And that should come across in daily practice for the students and the teachers. And in terms of mindfulness, what that means is helping them be present in every moment so that they can take full advantage of this opportunity to go to school. And that means learning strategies of how to work with their thoughts and their feelings and their bodies and other strategies so that they could engage in academic discourse and do well in school.
Mr. Herron, may I call you Doug?
Sure, please do.
Okay. You have been here, I think, more than 3 decades, am I correct?
That's true.
Well, what are some of the challenges you have faced in the more recent time period? And also, what accomplishments are you proudest of?
Well, I think, let me start with the second part of it. I think it's much more tempting to jump on the things that we're proud of. Basically, it's a history of helping kids and turning their lives around and their families' lives around. These are all talented, bright kids who should be moving on to a productive future, who have been stuck failing or near, certainly underachieving in previous schools that haven't been able to meet their specific learning needs or emotional needs or developmental needs. You know, I could cite certain graduates who have gone on to some prominent position, but I think the real pride is in the number of kids we've been able to help. Certainly the founder of the school, Lucille Rhodes, still gets an occasional call from someone saying, "How you saved my life when I came to Stevenson." And I think that's really, really what we're about. And in a sense also, somewhat more recently, a recognition, certainly by some board members and others, that we provide a real service to New York City in this regard. It's not only that we help individual families, but that we really are a service organization, as well as a school preparing kids for high school, for college. Challenges, there are some shifts in our population over time, so we need to kind of revamp and understand, although I think our basic principles remain essentially the same. One of the things that years ago we said, I don't know if we haven't said it recently, but whatever you see going on among adolescents now, on the street, so to speak, or these days certainly in social media, that you're going to react to and think, oh, why are they doing that? That our kids are sort of always in the forefront of that, and that's always a challenge, so that every school is challenged these days by dealing with social media issues that the kids use. We try to, if we can, be a half step at least ahead of them, and we try to do it in a way, like everything else we do, of integrating a reasonable approach to encourage students to take responsibility for their actions. As Matthew spoke earlier about mindfulness, that's another part of it. In the old days, one would have said, look before you leap, but now, think before you post a text that's going to hurt somebody's feelings or get some kind of negative impact on you. This is a whole area that is new and challenging in the last several years, and obviously we would like to avoid it, but it's not possible. It's here to stay. Another kind of challenge we face is that because most of our students are supported for their tuition in one way or another by the Department of Education, we struggle because the Department of Education, probably like any big bureaucracy in New York City, doesn't pay in a very timely fashion. So we struggle to wait for payments from the city in order to keep our school going. I think the other specific challenge of very recent years is a shift in presenting problems with our students, away from, we still have students of all types, but away from students who were primarily disaffected. They were struggling with adolescent issues, they didn't like school, they didn't want to go to school. They would come here, and once they got adjusted a little bit, they would often do very well, but they were still sort of on edge about it. Now we see many more students who are really disabled by their anxiety. Generalized anxiety, specific anxiety. Some, of course, may have some particular trauma in their past, and that's more understandable, but we're seeing it as a much more generalized situation. And without speculating wildly, it's pretty easy to see factors in society that are impacting that. But it's really a new challenge we face.
I can't help but reflect on the name of the school, Robert Louis Stevenson, and that great man who wrote so many wonderful books and short stories. But one of the things he said was, an aim in life is the only fortune worth finding. And it seems to me that this school indeed fulfills that mandate or that quote. Would you say that your students, that you emphasize finding an aim in life for your students?
I would say that that's happening every day in every class. And when the physical education teacher helps a student achieve one more push-up or one more sit-up than the week before and reach that goal, when the English teacher helps the student revise the paper so it's that much better, when the band really starts cooking and they can really make that song sound great, they're reaching those goals. I think problem solving and goal setting and goal achievement and taking things into SMART goals that are able to be small and measurable and achievable and timely, these help the student actually make that leap from far down the road wherever they want to go with just one step. And the journey definitely begins with one step. And I think for these students, the ones who are disaffected are the ones who have anxiety, realizing that it's only that one step in this moment that I have to take to get to the next place where I have to be. And I can have the strength and the courage and the support of this faculty to be able to do that. And they can be my guide and they can be the people who push me. I can reach those goals. And if you look at the office, in the office, there's a picture of the graduating class all dressed in blue with their caps and gowns. Those smiles, they say so much because each one has had a history of ups and downs and they've been able to make it somewhere and they have a hope for a future that's real. And that is a good fortune and we've helped them do that.
Well, tell us a little bit about the student who is an example of that goal that's been fulfilled, and that is the one that gave the TED Talk recently. He had done some work, volunteer work with autistic children. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Sure. He's been with us for 2 years. He will graduate this year and has had apparently a long-standing interest in working with autistic children based on some of his own personal struggles. If you tune into his TED Talk, you will find a really remarkable example of an articulate young man speaking about a difficult struggle that he's had along the way. He's been extremely successful here, happy here, in a way that he hadn't been in previous schools. He mentions that briefly in the talk. He's also, should mention, an outstanding science student. He received an award this year, one of the Rising Scientist Awards from the Child Mind Institute. He hopes, and I feel quite confident that he will make it, to become a psychiatrist and continue to work with children with mental health problems.
What are your goals for the school in the next 5 years? Where would you like to be?
In the next 5 years, I think we have some pretty clear goals. One, to expand moderately our population, because we want to serve more students than we now are. In the past year, I mean, another of the goals, but it's one that's already in process, is our outreach, especially Matthew's work as the director of outreach, to get us connected so that everybody who works with kids, adolescents in the community, in schools and in child service areas, private practitioners, psychiatrists, psychologists, social workers, and so on, should know about what we do and what kind of kid we can really help transform their lives and get them through a really hard spot. So we plan to grow a little bit, and as we do that, if our current projections show within about 3 or 4 years, we'll probably be ready and, I hope, able to move into a somewhat larger facility. We're not planning to get very big because the kind of work we do is limited in it. I mean, the work is so intense that we're never going to be a school of 300 students or something like that. But to make sure everybody who needs us knows about us, and to expand our services to a larger group of kids.
What would you say that parents need to know to best help their children?
There are many things that parents need to know. First of all, they need to know that it's possible. What they want for their kids, their hopes, their dreams for their kids are possible. They need to know that they have rights, their children have rights to a free and appropriate education, public education. And if they're not getting that in their school system, they have a right to find that and get that for their child. They need to know how to get the right services, like neuropsychological services and legal services. They need to know that it's important to find a school that is the right match for their child. They need to know that they need to find providers, including schools, who can recognize their child in that whole child framework, which I mentioned, and practice in that way. They need to know that their providers see the strengths and the struggles that their child have and look to address and both and grow the strengths and help remediate the struggles. They need to find people to work with their child who believe in hope, faith, and optimism that good things can happen. They need to know that they're a part of a community with other families who might be struggling with the same thing, and find those communities and be a part of them. And they need to know that, once again, it's very possible to have the child have the life that they deserve and they want.
I'd like to know some of the colleges that your students go to, and I think 100% rate of enrollment is amazing, just amazing in any school, but particularly in a school with special needs students. Name some of the colleges.
Well, we've had students in the last years go to schools like Brandeis. People this year have gotten accepted to University of Vermont, SVA, the CUNY schools, the SUNY schools. But you know, I always say that college is not about the sweatshirt. It's really about the match. And we work really hard to make sure that students find that school where they'll get the right support that they need to get the traction, so that the skills they've learned at Stevenson they can utilize and be successful in the next step.
I can't help but quip on what you just said. I always thought going to the college was the cap that you wore, and when I saw the Dalai Lama at Brown University speaking to an overflow crowd, the first thing he did was to put on his brown cap, and when he came to Hunter College he put on his Hunter cap, and that was kind of fun. Lastly, to wrap up, what is the message you want to give to your students as they move on?
I think the core of the message is that they can do it, and they've proven here that they can do it. That the road will not be easy. There will be challenges ahead, but if we've succeeded to the best degree, we've been able to give them the tools so they know they can identify and take on those challenges. There's lots of help out there available. They need to know how to access it. And if they do those two things, I think they'll be really quite successful.
Kudos to both of you. Thank you so much, Doug and Matthew, for letting Education Update come here today to really learn more in depth about the wonderful work that you do with students in the city of New York. Thank you so
very
much.
much.
Thanks for